G'day again everyone, welcome back to the vlog. It is currently 3:30 on a Wednesday afternoon, so you already know what that means. I'm heading into Crown Casino to play a bit of 2-5. Hopefully we can run better than the last session I vlogged, but even if we don't run good again, hopefully we can remain a bit more level-headed and we don't have to leave the session early because I was getting too emotional. That was not the best move for a poker player, so hopefully it goes better today. Alright, it's about 4 o'clock in the Crown Casino car park, so traffic actually wasn't that bad today, made it in with plenty of time. So heading into the poker room now, put our name on the 2-5 list. It's actually the Victorian Poker Championships these 2 weeks in Melbourne, so hopefully that's going to attract some people into the poker room, and then once they're in the poker room, hopefully they put their names on the 2-5 list and we can get a few games going for a weeknight. So heading in now, put our name on the list, and we'll let you know how we go. Hopefully we can get a few interesting hands to go over as well.
Equity's open to your hands.
G'day again everyone, it's about 2 AM here. I've just wrapped up my poker session at Crown Casino. Originally my plan was to head up to the rooftop car park again and go over the hand histories that we played tonight there. But as you can probably hear and maybe see in my windshield, it is raining cats and dogs at the moment. So I'm not that keen to stand outdoors and get soaked. Probably wouldn't even be able to go over the hands. You probably couldn't even hear me over the rain. So we're scratching that plan. So now I'm just gonna head home, get some rest, and then we'll go over the hands tomorrow when it's a bit more dry. Welcome back to the Crown rooftop car park everyone. It is currently 24 hours from when I last recorded to you guys. So it is 2 AM on a Friday morning and we're recording from the Crown car park. We didn't end up recording during the day because I actually ended up playing in a home game of poker. We're not going to focus on that game. We're going to focus on the game that I played last night on the Wednesday through to the Thursday morning. And I sit down in for 500 at a 2-5 game. That's where we play this first hand. So first hand, the 2-5, the cutoff decides to limp and the action folds to me in the small blind. I have ace of hearts, king of clubs. Obviously going to raise this hand up. I make it 25 and then the limper calls. So we're heads up to a flop. The flop is jack of diamonds, 10 of hearts, 8 of hearts. The action's on me. I have the decision between betting and checking here. I honestly think both options have merit, but I do decide to go ahead and bet, mostly for protection. I make it 30, and then the cutoff does decide to call. So we are still heads up to the turn, which is the 2 of clubs. Now I have the decision here, do I want to keep barreling to try and bluff this guy off? Most likely it'll be a one pair type hand that he's going to fold, or do I want to check, probably with the intention of check folding? I decide to continue bluffing. I bet 90. I like using ace-king here as a bluff, just because it puts my opponent in a really tough position if they have one pair. But if they do decide to call with one pair, I have a lot of outs. I can I could river a queen and make the nut straight, or I could hit an ace and a king and very likely still have the best hand. So that's what I do. I bet 90, and the cutoff decides to call the 90. So still heads up to the river, and the river is the 6 of hearts. Now this is a pretty interesting river because any jack is still top pair, so if my opponent was deciding to call me down with top pair, he's going to continue to do that. But because the river is a heart and the front door flush got in, I think I can actually bet again and bluff him off of a jack. And the reason I like bluffing this river is because I have the ace of hearts in my hand. So I know that he wasn't calling down with the nut flush draw. And it makes it much more likely that he does have a one pair type hand. And I'm just going to go ahead and represent the flush here I have the blocker, I shove all in for 335. So it's an overbet of the pot. I'm saying I have a flush. This is just to put maximum pressure on a one pair type hand like a jack, queen jack, king jack, ace jack. They're all going to have a lot of trouble calling this bet, and my opponent goes into the tank and they're thinking about it for a while, and eventually they decide to go ahead and fold. So first hand of the session, first hand that I relayed from this session, I win the pot with a huge bluff on the river, and yeah, I think it's very likely he did fold a jack on that river. The one other thing I do want to say about that hand, however, is that going all in with a bluff here, it ensures you lose the maximum when your opponent either does hero call you with a one pair, or if they did river the flush themselves, which is somewhat possible. Obviously, us having the ace of hearts makes that less likely. You do lose the maximum when you decide to overbet bluff. So just keep that in mind when you do it yourself. But I thought it was a good spot for it, and fortunately, he did make the fold. So we take down the first pot of the vlog. Next hand, under the gun, raises it for 15. Then a player who is actually very short stacked in the low jacks decides to call the 15, but he only started the hand with about 150. Then the action folds to me on the button. I have pocket fours, and I go ahead and call here. I like playing this hand on the button. In position's always fun. Flopping a set can be good, but yeah, it's just a good hand to call with on the button and try and play a bit of post flop with. So I do call, and then the blinds fold. So we are three ways to a flop. Flop's a pretty good one. It is 5-3-2 with two spades. So we do flop the open-ended straight draw. The under the gun player's first to act, and he bets out 25. And then the short stack calls the 25. Now the action's on me with the pocket fours. Obviously I can call or raise here, not folding the open ender and a pair here. But so those are my options. I actually go ahead and raise here. I make it 150. At the time, I was thinking, okay, it's very likely the under the gun player has two overcards, so I want him to fold those to get him off that equity. And then I just want to get all in with the short stack who can call with flush draws, straight draws themselves. Even if he has a weaker pair like an ace-3 or something, I can get all in with that and try and stack him. So that's what I did. In retrospect, I think that's a mistake. I think the chance of me not having the best hand here with my pocket fours is very likely. The under the gun player he has all of the overpairs here. He even has some fives like ace-5 suited or 5-6 suited, which are obviously better hands than my fours, which are probably going to call. And then in addition to that, it's also possible that the short stack has a better hand than pocket fours here, and I don't think he's going to fold anything at this rate. So I did make it 150, which I think was a mistake. But having said that, the under the gun player does fold, and then the low jack player snap calls. So like I said, I was already worried about him having a better hand when I raised, and when he snap calls, it's not looking great for me. So I'll show my fours, the low jack decides not to show, and the board runs out 7 king. No flush draw gets in, but he does show pocket tens, so he scoops that pot. I think raising the flop there was a mistake, particularly given the dynamics that there was two people in the pot who are not going to fold better hands when I raise here. So lose a big one there as a result of the mistake, and just I think if I had that decision back, I would just call and try and play a turn. So right when I was outside in the rooftop car park doing the hand histories I couldn't do last night because it was too wet and it started raining, it started raining again. So now I've come inside my car and we're going to try and get these hand histories out to you without getting too wet right now. But we're going to have to do it from inside, otherwise you're going to see me standing there getting soaked as I'm trying to explain these hands to you. For the next hand, I'm in the cutoff and I have ace-jack. I raise it up to 15. And then the button, who's another regular Crown 2-5 player who I have a bit of history with, he goes ahead and makes it 50 for a 3-bet. The action folds back around to me, and I decide to call the 50. Definitely think when it's a cutoff versus button dynamic, Ace-Jack is one of the stronger hands I'm opening in the cutoff, and particularly against a reg who might be trying to exploit me if he thinks I'm folding to 3-bets too much. Definitely want to defend here with the Ace-Jack, which is what I do. So we're heads up to a flop, and the flop is King, Jack, 6, all clubs. And I do have the Ace of clubs. So that's definitely going to play into the hand itself. But the action's on me. I check to the pre-flop aggressor. He goes ahead and bets 35. Obviously, this is a smaller size bet, and we did flop middle pair with nut flush draw. Definitely not looking to fold. However, having said that, I don't like raising here either, just because I think if my opponent does have one of the stronger hands in his range, like a king, pocket aces, I definitely think those hands are always going to call the raise, and then we're sort of just value owning ourselves when we do have middle pair. But even having said that, though, if he's going to call with those hands, we do have the nut flush draw as well. So that's not the worst thing in the world. But basically, I call because I want to keep his bluffs in his range, and hopefully we can look to call down or hit the nut flush and bet for value ourselves. So I call. The turn is the 7 of spades. I go ahead and check it to the aggressor, and he checks back. The river is the 7 of hearts, so it's a repeat 7. I go ahead and check it over to the aggressor again. Not really looking to bet a jack here. I think if my opponent does have a stronger hand, like pocket queens or a king that did decide to check, obviously those hands are going to call. So I'm not really looking to value own myself, particularly when a hand like pocket tens or a worse jack, they might even fold to a bet here. So just definitely not looking to bet my jack here. So I check it over, and then the aggressor decides to bet 100. So it's a pretty awkward spot with jacks here. We lose to a king if that did check the turn, which it might not. I definitely think it's possible, but pocket queens is the hand that's sort of jumping out to me. The most likely hand I lose to that he's going to take this line with. This opponent is definitely good enough to bet pocket queens for thin value here. But having said that, when we have a jack and his value range is pretty narrow there, I think I'm going to lean more towards calling, just because all of the ace high hands that he's going to 3-bet, like ace 10 suited, or if he uses a wheel ace like ace 5, I could definitely see him taking this line with those. And considering the pot odds of his bet size, I think we just have to throw in the call with the ace jack here, which is what I decide to do. I call, and then my opponent shows ace 10 of spades. So he was bluffing with one of those ace high 3-bets, and we take down the pot here with our second pair. This next hand gives me a bit of deja vu, because it's very similar to the previous hand we played, but this time I am in the low jack with jack 10 of hearts, so going to raise it up, 15. Then the hijack, who is the same player from the last hand, he goes ahead and 3-bets me again. He makes it 50. Action folds back around to me. Obviously going to defend jack 10 here. I call. There is some merit to 4-betting here, particularly against an aggressive opponent who clearly likes 3-betting. So I definitely think that this might be a good spot to mix in the 4-bet bluff. But obviously calling is the quote-unquote standard move, and that's what I decided to go ahead and do. So we're heads up to the flop. The flop is 8 of clubs, 8 of hearts, 3 of hearts. So we do flop the flush draw here and the 2 overcards. There's the 2 overcards to trips, so it's not really clean overcards. Regardless, obviously going to go ahead and check this to the pre-flop aggressor. He decides to bet 35 again. Noticing a bit of a pattern in this hand. 3-bet to 50, C-bet to 35. But whatever. That's cool. He bets 35. Action's on me. I have a decision here. I can either call or raise. Obviously not looking to fold our flush draw here. And this is where I make a very key mistake in the hand, I think. I actually decide to raise it up to 110. And here's why I think semi-bluffing with a flush draw here is a big mistake. I think it's kind of obvious that's what I'm doing. So it's like, when I do raise this board, I'm representing a very narrow range of hands. I'm basically saying I have 8-7 suited, 9-8 suited, pocket threes, which might even fold pre-flop, honestly, or quads. Those are the only hands I can have here that I'm going to raise for value. So when I start mixing in these check raises with hands like Jack-10 of hearts, it's going to be a spot where I'm pretty obviously overbluffing, and a thinking player that's aggressive, he's going to pick up on this. And I think he did pick up on this because I make it 110, he moves all in for 500 effective. And like, obviously, I have to fold here. I'm not getting the right odds to draw. He could be bluffing with king high, ace high. He could be moving in with an overpair too, potentially, just to try and get me off the hand I obviously have. But whatever the case is, obviously have to fold when he goes all in here. And I think raising here was a mistake because it's so obvious, and it gives the opponent the option to make this move with... We don't even know what hand he ended up doing it with, but it's just, it could be anything. So I think definitely check call here is a much better play than check raise here with the flush draw. So lose that one, but hopefully we learnt from it. Next hand, I am under the gun +2. I have red pocket eights. I go ahead and make it 15, and I get no less than 4 callers. So we are 5 ways to a flop. It's a pretty good flop for pocket eights. It is 9-8-4 with 2 clubs. So obviously flop middle set, but very, very wet board. So when the action checks to me, I go ahead and bet 60. Definitely want to size up when I can get called by so many things. Obviously any 9, flush draws. There's a bunch of straight draws like Jack-10, 7-6, just a bunch of stuff I can get value from here. So I definitely want to size up. With a hand as strong as middle set here, I make it 60, and only the hijack calls. So we are heads up to a turn. Turn is the king of spades. The action's on me. I bet 120, but I think this is a mistake. The pot's already 180, and we only have about 420 behind effective. So I think when the board's this wet and my opponent has so many hands, they're going to call straight draw, flush draws, straight flush draws. There's even a backdoor flush draw now. And I think he's going to, if he's going to call 120, he's probably going to call like 200 as well, to be honest. I think I really need to size it up here. Or potentially check with the intention of check raising all in and just trying to win the pot here. Let him semi-bluff, and then he'll have to call it off, getting the right odds. Potentially something that could happen. Or he could even bet 9-8s or pocket 4s if he didn't raise those on the flop. It's just a bunch of hands. Obviously, we beat with a hand as strong as middle set here. But yeah, I think I either need to bet bigger myself, something like 200 as an overbet, or potentially check raise with the intention of check raising all in. I think I bet 120, which I think is a mistake, but regardless, that's what I do. I bet 120, and then the hijack decides to call. So we're heads up to the river, and the river is the 7 of spades. It's definitely not the best card in the world. Now I lose to Jack-10, or if he did have a backdoor spade draw somehow, I definitely lose to that as well. So it's not the best card in the world, but the action's on me. The pot is about 420, and I only have 300 behind. So I think in this spot, I still want to go all in for value, and I can potentially get called by a king. I think if he called with a king on the turn, he's definitely going to highly consider calling on the river, so it's potentially a hand I can get value from. Also, if he did slow play a hand like pocket 4s or 9-8, which I'm not too convinced he would when the turn is that wet, but it's definitely somewhat possible. Those could be hands I can get value from as well. So I do decide to go all in for 300, and then the hijack snap calls. And I'm not liking a snap call here on this river. I show my pocket 8s, and then he shows Jack-10 of spades. So not only did he make his straight on the river, but he actually also made the backdoor flush draw as well. So gonna lose that one. I actually like how the opponent played it, to be honest. It's when he calls that bet on the turn, he's getting pretty good odds to draw with his straight flush draw, well, straight draw and his flush draw. And if he goes all in, he's only going to get called by my set here on the turn, so it's better for him to just call and then snap me off when I go all in the river and he gets there. So, well played, villain. You got me. So obviously we've run bad so far this session, but like I said at the start of this vlog, I really didn't want to just rage quit when I started to run bad. Definitely think in this session I made more mistakes than I made in the last session, so that's definitely stuff I can learn from, which is actually a positive. But I also want to take the positive from this session. Just because I'm running bad, I don't want to quit and leave straight away. I want to hang in this game for a bit longer and just try to play my best poker I possibly can. And I think with this next hand, I was able to do that. An early position player raises to 20. Then I'm in the cutoff with ace-king yet again. I go ahead and 3-bet to 70. The action folds back round to early position and she calls. So we are heads up to a flop. The flop is ace-8 for rainbow. The early position player checks to me. I think this is a good spot for me to try and bet for value. I can definitely get called by worse aces. If my opponent does have a pocket pair like 7s, 9s, 10s, even jacks might not 4-bet pre-flop. They're hands I can get value from, but I'm going to go ahead and bet a bit smaller just to give those hands a price to call. Sorry, I go ahead and bet 50 and then she calls. So we are still heads up to a turn. The turn is the jack of spades, which brings out a backdoor flush draw. The early position player checks to me. I think this is another spot where I can try and get value from. Obviously, I lose to pocket jacks now. Ace jack I also lose to, but I can still get value from ace queen, ace 10, any ace I can try and get value from. But again, I want to bet small just to give those hands a good price to call. I go ahead and bet 80. And then the early position player actually check raises to 200. So 200 is obviously a small sizing, but when I look at whether I want to call or fold here, what hands could she be doing this with as a bluff? Because she check called the flop, right? So it's not really that likely that she has like a king 10 or a king queen that has a straight draw or a backdoor flush draw. I mean, it's somewhat possible that she check called those hands on the flop. I think it's unlikely on an ace high board though that she would go for that. So like those hands are somewhat possible, but I think it's much more likely that she has 2-pair with ace jack, ace 8 suited, also ace 4 suited, also potential hands she's going to call with pre-flop when I 3-bet. And then obviously pocket 8s, pocket 4s. I already said on the flop she could check call with pocket jacks very reasonably. So I think with all those strong hands in her range, and the weaker hands that I'm like, oh, maybe she is bluffing, maybe, but they probably just fold on the flop. I think when her range is that strong, I think this is a pretty good spot to just go ahead and fold the ace-king here, which is actually what I decide to do. I go ahead and fold the ace-king. I think the chances of me being behind are very, very high, even getting such a good price. And then she was actually kind enough to show that she did have pocket 8s. So she flopped the set, and I was drawing dead pretty much from the flop. So I think after that hand, it was a good one to wrap up the session on. And I was very happy that in spite of my not only run bad in the previous hands, but also the mistakes I made that contributed to the run bad, that I was able to remain level-headed and make the reasonable fold in this decision, not just tilt off my stack because I 3-bet ace-king and then flopped top pair, top kicker, and now I have to go with it. So I was pretty happy with myself that I was able to remain focused and make the solid lay down in that spot. And even though, obviously, I ended up down for the session, losing all those hands, I definitely have mistakes I can learn from, which I'm happy about. I got to get this vlog out to you guys. You got to go over the hands. Hopefully you can get something out of that as well. So even though financially I am down on the session and I did lose, I definitely think there's a bunch of more important things that I can take out of this. So that's going to wrap up the vlog for today. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.